Welcome back to our channel. This is Tago Farms. All right, if you look behind me, you see our plantains are just they're just rushing their growth. When I say rushing, I mean rushing their growth. Our banana orchard is over there. It's about a month plus. We want to look at how you can actually manage your plantain farm to get the best result. When I talk about the best result, I mean best yield, your weed control system, manual application category. What category do you fall under, the organic category or that of inorganic category? And of course, as you know, our farm is basically organic. We're also going to be looking at other farm practices like trimming or pruning. When I talk about trimming, I mean controlling the growth of leaves, the number of leaves you have per plant, and how you can actually control them. When do you trim? Why do you actually trim as well? So we're going to also look at desuckering. Desuckering is actually taking away or removal of excess suckers or unwanted suckers so as to control the growth of your individual banana plant or plantain plant. So we're also going to be looking at irrigation. Irrigation in the sense of how do you apply water to your plant? How often? I get this question more often. People come to ask me, how often do you apply water in the time of dry season or during Hamatan season as we have here in West Africa? So I'm going to be looking and I'm going to be telling you how you can actually apply and how often you can actually apply water during that of dry season. So without much of a ado, let's get into this video. All right, let's look at weed control system. When we talk about weed control, what do we mean? Weeding. I can remember during our time in primary school, in our elementary school, when we learned about weeding, what weeding is all about. So guys, right now we're actually weeding at the moment. So we have a few grasses that are actually springing up. So we need to get rid of them. We've not had rain for the past, I think, 4 or 5 days. So they are not growing rapidly at the moment. So we want to get rid of them so that the sun will actually hit them. They dry up before the rain comes. Let's continue. Then we used to put it this way: the weeding is the removal of unwanted plants in our farm. Very simple. So when we talk about weeding, it's as simple as that. If you look at our farm, basically you will see that we do maintain our farm in terms of weeding. And the last time we weeded was I think about a month ago, over a month ago, and we make sure that the weeds do not take over the plant or do not take over our plant. We constantly maintain, trim out those weeds to see that they do not share the plant nutrients or the plantain nutrients or the banana nutrients or the crop as it may be. So you must make sure you constantly weed, you constantly maintain, trim, and then take away those unwanted plants, unwanted grasses out of your farm. So, and how do you do this? There are two basic ways or three basic ways you can actually take away weed from your plant. You can actually do it manually, you taking away the weeds by yourself, or using a tool, a handy tool to take away those weeds. Or you can actually utilize machine. If you have a very large farm, you can actually use mechanized form of weeding, where you employ machines to actually take out those weeds. And then I think we have the third one is a chemical weeding, where you apply chemicals to the weeds. Mind you, when we talk about weeding, we are looking at routine method. How often do you weed? At what interval? 2 months interval, 3 months interval, 1 month interval, depending on how quick the weeds are growing and depending on the season. And of course, during the rainy season, which we are in at the moment, the weeds tends to grow rapidly, and you must make sure you also follow up with that pace. Once they are taken up, of course, within a week or two, the weeds have taken over, and then you have to weed. Perhaps you might give it, okay, 1 month, let me weed, so that I don't come every week to do weeding. So you must weed at an interval so that your bananas or your plantains must utilize the available nutrients in the farm. Secondly, let's look at irrigation. Very important. If you are setting up a plantain farm, you're setting up a banana farm, you must have irrigation in mind. Why must you consider irrigation even before you start your plantain farm or your banana farm? These guys, they take a whole lot of water. The moment they start lagging water, everything drops. The rate at which they shoot out their leaves will drop. The yield will basically, of course, drop as well. So they need water in as much as they need manure or fertilizer to grow and to give you better yield. They also need enough water. So there are two forms of irrigation. We talk about basic forms anyway. There might be other forms, but the basic ones are the drip system, in a sense whereby you run pipes along the farm, along the individual banana plant or the individual plantain farm, and then have the water drip at interval. So drip system is also good. This is one of the best. Why do we advise drip system? Drip system will help you to what? To conserve water, enough water, and then to apply water at a given rate. So if you're applying 1,000 gallons of water or 10,000 gallons of water, you know that okay, I have about 100 plants and they are going to take 1,000 gallons at this interval. If you're applying 1,000 gallons or 10,000 gallons at 2 days interval, it helps you manage your water and it helps you manage the resources as well. It helps you know what this number of plants take at what interval. So it helps, like I said, it helps you manage your farm. Also looking at a disperse system of water application, whereby you apply water in a dispersed form. You are not concise with one plant now, you are dispersing the water to the whole farm. In that case, you are wasting a lot of water. You are wasting more water than your plant need. So drip, we advise for drip system, because in drip system, like I said, you conserve water and then you can actually study what individual plants or your farm, what they consume at what interval. So irrigation is also very important, considering the fact that these guys, they consume a whole lot of water. Okay guys, the third point which we're going to be looking at will be pruning. Before we go into, or before we talk about pruning, you can actually see these are banana orchard. Over there is our plantain. These are banana over here. And like I said in my last video, here is going to be a chicken coop. Here where you have the grasses on point. So that's where we have our chicken coop. It's a proposed site anyway, where we actually establish our chicken coop. So let's talk about pruning or trimming. How do you control the number of leaves on an individual banana plant? So this is very important because pruning will actually help your bananas to grow very fast, help your plantains to actually shoot very fast. What this does is actually when you prune your plant, your individual plantain plants or banana plants, it actually sends signal to the plant or to the banana plant or to the plantain plant that okay, I have lesser leaves now, so I need to grow more leaves. Send signal that will actually shoot more leaves. And again, is that why do you trim? When you have excess leaves or dried leaves, let me talk about dried leaves. When you have dried leaves on your plant, it tends to actually attract diseases and pests, and this is not what you want for your banana. So when you trim off those dried leaves, they help to do what? Control pests. They help to do what? Control pests. So it's very important you trim off dried leaves and excess leaves so you don't have pest infested farm. If you have a banana or a plantain that might be fruiting at 8 months, when you do good farm management, when you treat your farm well, it might be fruiting at 7 months. So it's very important to take some of these things into consideration if you're setting up a plantain farm or a banana farm. These are some of the things that will help you. These lectures are free. Nobody will tell you this, but I'm telling you this for free. So when you do some of all this, when you carry out some of all these practices, it helps to manage your farm. So pruning is very important. Prune at interval. Don't prune to kill your plants. I didn't tell you. Okay, let me put it this way. Okay, if you must know when you are pruning, you must know the number of leaves to live on your banana. When we are talking about individual banana now. How many leaves do you leave to actually grow with a banana plant? So I think 9 or 8 leaves, they are ideal. Leaving about 9 or 8 is very much ideal. So it helps the plant to actually balance the growth as well. Another thing is why do you trim? Trimming will also help you to help the plant to actually utilize more or enough nutrients. So by the time you trim off excess leaves, the plant which requires more nutrient to grow will have lesser leaves to actually feed those nutrients. Because if you have excess leaves, the plant will supply them excess nutrient when they do not need it. Take away those leaves that might be taking much nutrient from your plant. So enough, the plant has enough nutrient to actually grow rapidly and naturally grow well and give you what you need as well. So pruning very much essential. All right, guys, let's look at pest control. Very important. Pest control. You find out that some of the points which we actually brought out when we talk about weeding, when we talk about pruning, these guys are actually talking about pest control. These guys will actually help you do what? Control your pest. So by the time you prune or trim, by the time you weed, you're actually doing what? Controlling the pest. And it's very important. So by the time you do all these practices, you're actually doing what? Controlling pests. You see these guys, when these guys dry out, they harbor pest. I talked about this earlier. They harbor pest and you do not need them again. At that point, they are not actually helping the plant. Again, if you look closely, you'll see that these guys are very much healthy and they're growing very well, pretty well. At some point, probably in the next 2 weeks, they're going to wither. And that's the point when you cut them off. Cut them off. Immediately they begin to dry off. Because at that point, they do not add value to your banana plants again. And that's the point when you do what? You get rid of them. So pest control is very essential. Make sure your plantation is quite neat. We don't joke with these farm practices, weeding, pruning, pest control. Don't use any form of chemical. You understand? So it's very important to keep note of this. And these are organic farm. No chemical application is actually done here. So everything is actually done manually or through organic form. Okay, guys, we've talked about pruning, we've talked about weeding, we've talked about irrigation. Let's look at manual application. Over here, is our compost point. This is a cow dung manure mixed with some of the grasses which we cut off from our farm. So we kind of compose them here to help boost production. So manual application is very important. These are some of the farming practices that will help your farm do pretty well. So if you look at our farm, we don't joke in terms of care. We don't joke in terms of manual application. So manual application will help, and routine manual application is very important. So it will help you to manage the growth of your farm, boost the growth. When we talk about boosting the growth, in terms of the soil fertility, it helps to boost the fertility of your soil. If you look, you see how fresh and how well to do plantain orchard is doing. So look at this individual. How do you know that your plantain or your banana is actually doing well? When you look at the fresh, when you look at the leaf, see how robust they're growing. So this will tell you that these guys are getting enough nutrients. And then we apply manure routinely, 2 months interval we apply. And when we talk about manure application, of course, I talked about how you can actually effectively apply your manure when you don't, so as to avoid infesting your banana plant or your plantain plant with diseases and pests. So application must be done at least a foot away from the plant, at least a foot away from the plant, so you don't get manure just directly on your banana stem. There are some people that just get their banana and they get their manure and then apply directly on the stem. Yeah, yeah, inviting pests and diseases to actually infest your plant. So this manual application I think it has to do with the basic or the essential element which your plants need to actually grow very well. And when we talk about the NPK, the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, these guys are very, very necessary for the growth and well-being of your banana or your plantain farm. So that's why we go for organic. In as much as poultry droppings, they are the best in terms of organic poultry or rabbit droppings. These guys are the best, but we have to use what we have, the available manure we have. Like I said, our chicken coop will be over there, somewhere over there. So what we intend to do in terms of generative farm practices going to be like a cycle. So what we intend to do so as to boost the growth of our farm. So by the time we install our poultry or chicken coop and then actually put in place our poultry beds, so we're going to utilize their manure to actually feed our plant. And as much as they're going to also feed from the plant, their droppings will actually boost the growth of the banana. It's kind of generative form of farming. So that's what we intend to do. We give the birds food, they give us manure, we feed the plants with the manure, the plant feed us from what we've given them. So it's it's just like a symbiotic system. I give you, give me. So it's very, very important. So we are going to do that here. So manure application is very important. Take note.